Welcome back, everybody. Today we are starting on a little island that is just outside of the city that we've been working on, and there's a very good reason for why we're over here, because today we are going to be working on a harbor district, which is going to stretch from about over there all the way over to here, and in between we're going to be filling in a lot of buildings from the ones that we've got over here up until about the shoreline right here. But that's not the only project that we're going to be working on today. There is some other things that I want to do throughout the city, which I think are going to help us make it just a little bit more interesting to look at. And the tree farm that we built last time is going to be really important for what I want to add in. So I've got a few things together here that we're going to be using to add in some decorations along the middle of the street. And they're going to serve two functions. First, we're going to use these to be able to decorate the street, and then we're also going to use it to light it up. And the way I want to be able to do that is we're going to take some of these moss blocks and we're going to put them in a row of 3, and then around the outside of the moss blocks we're going to take some dark oak shelves just like this. We are also going to decorate these shelves by using lodestones in the middle right here. On top of these planters we're going to place some azaleas, and then we're going to build a little light post in the middle. For right now, I don't have any of the copper bars that are all aged up, so I'm placing in these ones here, but you're going to have to imagine that these are going to have the green from when they're fully oxidized, and then we're going to hang some soul lanterns just like this. So what I want to end up doing is have this design repeated throughout the streets that we have in our city, and we're going to separate them out by about 5 blocks. So we'll go down 5 blocks, and then we're going to put another planter there. We'll go down 5 more blocks, put another planter there, and that way we will have lighting throughout the streets as well as some decoration. But there are a lot of streets, and that means we've got a lot of light posts to build, which is why it was important for me to build the tree farm, because we need to have a lot of logs to be able to craft up all of the shelves that we're going to be using. So I have these stripped dark oak logs, which we're going to use to craft up all of the shelves I'm going to use today. The decorations for our streets will be the first project that we work on. The second project will be adding in the harbor district, and this is where we're going to be putting in a lot of the builds, transforming this area from a grassy field into a new part of our city. And I think it would make sense to have this be a harbor because we've got this whole ocean that stretches out over this way, and it eventually leads out to where our guardian farm is, about 1,000 blocks in that direction. And adding in a harbor would make a lot of sense for a city that's by the ocean. So I think it'd be good to build some docks and warehouses and other types of builds that you would expect to find in a harbor, and we'll probably spend most of the episode working on that project. But for now, let's get started with getting our decorations and the materials that we need collected up for that. Well, I just built a tree farm for pale oak logs. One thing I don't have a lot of right now are pale oak saplings, and without any saplings, a tree farm is fairly useless. The good news is that a Fortune 3 hoe gets you a lot of saplings. Now, I could go ahead and leave the iron bars out so that way we could have them all be oxidized, but I think what I'm going to do instead is just build with them not being oxidized. Given how long we're going to be working on things, I think they should be fully oxidized by the time we finish building. We are going to be using so many dark oak shelves. Even if we don't use them all today, we've got a whole city still to build. I don't think I've ever crafted this many lodestones before, but this is definitely a much better recipe than the one that required netherite ingots. Can you ever have enough soul lanterns? I don't know, but I now have 8 stacks worth. All right, I think I now have everything that we need in these 3 shulker boxes. That should be enough to get us started. The tricky part on this is going to be laying everything out and making sure the spacing is correct in between. What I think is going to work best is if I go ahead and lay out the moss in all of the spots where I want to build, and then after the moss is in place, I can just go back through and add in all of the decorations. All right, we've now got them all placed in, and there's actually quite a lot of them. I did end up moving this one back just a little bit to be able to have them all lined up at the intersection down at that end, but the copper bars are starting to oxidize, so those will be looking good soon. Now it's time to switch out the moss for the dark oak shelves. And the sound for placing shelves is so satisfying. Nice, but I keep accidentally putting the shelves on the shelves. I've been running in circles around so many planters that I think I'm starting to get dizzy. But luckily, this is the last set that needs shelves. Now for the tricky part, adding in the lodestone. And the reason that it's tricky is because you have to have only 1 in each inventory slot, otherwise you're putting in a whole bunch on the shelf. I'm back here crafting up some more lodestones. This is the second time I've had to craft up some more. I thought I crafted up a lot, and then I crafted up some more, and now we're crafting up even more. If these 4 stacks aren't enough to finish everything, I'm going to be so very sad. Oh no, it's looking like we are not going to be able to make it. These are the last of the ones that I've crafted up, and we've got one more left to do. I am so very sad. All right, this should be the last one that we need to place lodestones into, and And done. Nope, and done. At least with the base. We've now got the top part to get done. The challenge with this part is making sure that we don't use the azaleas in the same pattern over and over again. We want to make sure that we're using the one without flowers and the one with flowers in different patterns each time. Once again, I've run out of resources. This time it was the pale oak fences. That should get me to the end though. All of the planters have now been added in, and I think they add a nice element to the streets, especially after the copper is going to oxidize. That's going to make it fit in a lot better with the color scheme that we have going on. The orange right now, it's not so great, but we're not just going to sit around and wait for that to happen. We've got some other things to work on. The next thing that we're going to need to do is a little bit of work with the terrain out here because we need to flatten some of this space out. We're going to also have to dig out this island because I don't want an island in the middle of the harbor. So it's time to do some terraforming, but we need to get something first. Since we're going to be doing some digging under the water, we need to retrieve my conduit, which the last time I used it was when I was building the Guardian farm. And that was a long time ago. So my conduit is right down here. Let's get that picked up and then we can take it home with us. Hopefully without dying. No, don't even think about it. Don't even think about it. All right, I've managed to escape it without dying. I've got the conduit. Let's head home. We've got the conduit set up. We've got a couple of beacons set up. Let's get to work. Underwater terraforming is the most difficult thing to do. So we're going to start there and then we'll do the terraforming along the shore. Now, I've done a couple of different types of projects where I've had to do a lot of underwater digging. And I found that the best way to do this is to first have a barrier around the area where you're going to be doing the digging. That way you can dig out that area without it being flooded with water. And then once it's dug out, you can fill it in with water, remove the barrier, and then everything flows together pretty well. Does it maybe take a little bit more work? Probably, but this way we can avoid having any of those weird water glitches where there's no water source blocks. The other thing that we're going to do is once we get it down to a level that we like, we can start adding in some sand along the base level so that way we have a little bit of a seabed that we can customize and blend into the surrounding terrain. And now that it's all prepared, we can start filling it in with some water. Once we have the infinite water sources, it's pretty easy to get it all filled up. And that is our terraform seabed. With that taken care of, it's time to get this area all fixed up. So let's get started. With the terraforming completed, you can start to see the plan for this area. We've got some spots for roads around here and here. We've also got the coastline, which is going to have something to go along here, and it's going to wrap around to the corner. You can just about see where it's going to end up over on that side. And this little raised platform here in the middle is going to make more sense once we start getting the build into place. But if we drop down, you can just see how we wrap around this corner here. And I think eventually what I'm going to do is extend out this level past here. So this area is going to drop down a little bit as well. But that will be a project for another day because right now we've got some building to do. Actually, we've got some resource gathering to do first. But since we had this area loaded while I was working on the terrain, the copper bars are starting to oxidize and we're getting closer to the color that I want it to be. Actually, I think this is the correct one. That's fully oxidized there. So this will be the final look. And thinking about the resources that we're going to need today, obviously deep slate is going to be the big one. I think in total, we're going to need about 16 shulker boxes of various types of deep slate blocks. And right now, I don't think I have that much. Yeah, I think right now I've only got about these 4 chests worth of cobbled deep slate. All of the rest have been used up. And over here, we've got a little bit, but definitely not all that we're going to need. So I need to get to work getting everything collected. Recently, I've been using a tunnel bore system to get all of the deep slate that I've been using, but that system has run out of room and I don't want to have to find a new location and rebuild it. That's just going to take a lot of time. So I'm using what I found to be the second fastest way to get deep slate, and that's using a haste 2 beacon and efficiency 5 pickaxe. And while it's a little bit slower than the tunnel bore system, I think that's going to be good enough for today. The one downside to using this method though is that tools need to be repaired. Fortunately, I have my villager trading hall, which will allow me to repair up all of my tools while also being able to go through and converting stone blocks into quartz blocks, thanks to all of the masons that I have. But we're not going to just be collecting deep slate. We also have a lot of other blocks to collect. Some of the blocks that we're going to be using will require a little bit of work to craft them up, like shelves, which requires to strip logs before we can craft them, or lodestones, which require a lot of chiseled stone bricks to be able to craft. Other blocks just require us to go out and get them collected extracted from specific biomes, like ferns, while blocks like glazed terracotta just need to be smelted up. But I now think that I have everything that we are going to be using in all of these shulker boxes, and there are a lot of blocks here. We are going to be using a little over 60,000 blocks for this project. Now all of our blocks have been moved out to where we're going to be building, and we'll be able to get started building as soon as I take care of these pillagers over here. There we go. Let's start building. There we go. The harbor is completed, or at least this stage of the harbor is completed. I still have a few things that I want to be able to do before we can say this area is fully completed, but I'm really happy with everything that I've built today. I think it adds a lot to this shoreline, and from this distance, you can see everything that was built, but we can go ahead and take a closer look at everything here. There's a lot of little details that I've added in, and we're going to start our walkthrough from back here. You can see the lampposts that we've added in. You can tell how long I've been building by the fact that these copper bars are fully oxidized, or most of them are fully oxidized. I think these ones still have a little ways to go. But these first buildings over here on the left are more like warehouses. Over on the right, we have this little area that is supposed to be sort of like a plaza area. So we've got this little covered walkway that goes around it. We've got some trees on either side. Put some barrels here. I don't know that the barrels really make a lot of sense, but they're up here, at least for now. And then over on this side, we have the dock area, and it's separated into two spots. So the way that I was thinking about it was this area over here on the left is an area where ships would come in and be loaded up. So we've got a bunch of crates and different cargo all ready to go to be loaded in. And this tower serves two different purposes. The first purpose is that it has the crane arms that will be able to extend out to load up the ships. And so what it will do is that these chains would come down, lift up the cargo, and rotate the structure around to put it onto the ships, which would go along this side of the dock. So in building this tower, what I tried to do in order to indicate that it rotates around is that you can see the polished black stone bar right along here, and then you see the grindstones here. That's supposed to signify that this whole structure is going to rotate around using the polished black stone as a track. And then this center structure right here is going to also be part of that rotation. So this would also rotate around. So you can see the polished andesite right here. That is an inside track. And you've got the grindstones right here and then right here. And those are going to be wheels which run along that track. It's a little tricky trying to add function to a static build, but there we go. The other purpose for these towers is as a beacon. So up on top, we have these fires. And for these fires, what I did was a little bit different. So we've got smoke here from the campfires, but I wanted to have the larger flames up here instead of just the campfires showing. So the campfires are actually underneath the soul sand, and then we've got the soul flames on top of the soul sand. And this is a little trick that I learned from Jake Kelton Crafts when we did a project together about a year ago. And I think it works pretty well. So both of these towers have these beacons, and that will help ships coming in from the ocean to be able to find where they need to go. But while this side of the harbor is more functional, this side of the harbor is going to be more decorative. So we've got this covered walkway which leads along the side of the harbor area. And we've got barrels and crates along here as well. But I view this side of the harbor as more geared towards passengers as opposed to cargo. So the cargo on this side is a little bit smaller because it's more about passenger cargo as opposed to shipping a bunch of goods. But the fun part for this build was getting the curve to match the coastline, and I think it came together very well. We also have a zombie in this roof, I think. Let's see. Yep. All right. You can't be in here, dude. Time for you to go. Pick those things up so we don't get any more mobs spawning in here. We need to light that up. With all of the work that we've been doing in the city, though, we are starting to get some pretty good sight lines. I mean, just look at this harbor. It's starting to look like a proper city. I especially like this view from these towers where you can look back and see the different rooftops and then the towers poking through for where our different farms are located. You can also get a sense of the scale of this city because our wolf farm is just about out of render distance, and I've got the render distance turned all the way up to 32. So this is going to be a pretty big city when it's all said and done. But I think that is where we are going to leave it for today. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave a like. If you want to see more, please subscribe. And until next time, see you later.